Good morning, Jai Bhim. I am at a very important place, and I can't imagine that such a place was possible when I was studying here. I am in Johannesburg, just outskirts Krugersdorp, and we are at a site where the geological site is noted as the cradle of humankind, where Lucy, our ancestral fossil, was discovered, and there's an entire exhibition, Maropeng Park, that is near a museum that tells us the origins of humankind. And now here we are at a nirox foundation, an artist in residency site. This place that we are witnessing is this granular structure, beautiful nature reserve. In this place, an artist who had come here as an artist in residence, sponsored by Center for Indian Studies in Africa in Johannesburg, Rias Kumu, one of the co-founders of Kochi Biennale. Nonetheless, a fighting spirit that Rias brings to its art and practice has been a phenomenal gift to the Indian as well as world art scene. The way Rias conceptualizes things are something that go like his eyes are agitating calmness. So with that metaphor of agitating calmness demonstrated through Rias's eyes, we can see that gaze reflected in this marvelous piece of work that Rias has called the fourth world. Fourth world, as many of you know, is a concept that has been trying to galvanize the people who have left out of the third world project. There's the first world, there's the second world, there's the third world, the solidarity that was enshrined in Bandung conference in Indonesia. And now that third world conference also had overtones of supremacy and elitism of the native groups. They were left out, outcast world over. Dalits, the tribal, the pastoralists, the world over nomads. Fourth world is that concept, and Rias brings the dimension of fourth world. Now look at that sculpture that he has made. There are 4 different plinths. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is a profound metaphor. Ambedkar is facing right to you. It's a very rare occurrence for you to witness Ambedkar straight up in a full-bodied shape, witnessing you almost in a hugging posture. You can hug Ambedkar, you can embrace him, but as well as embrace the directions that he's offering. Now Ambedkar here, unlike other postures that we have seen, is either holding a constitution or directing his finger to the parliament. Now that was an artist's imagination. Artists who have created that imagination has confined Ambedkar to some distinctive recognition of constitution maker, and thereby the legislative and political aspects of social emancipation is confined within the constitutional book that mandates, and Ambedkar is holding close to that in his left hand. And then there is a finger that is pointing towards the political power. What happens though when Ambedkar is not bounded by a piece called constitution, when he's not bounded by a directional logic of politics, when he is freed out of those imaginative impositions that we have put on him? Here Ambedkar then comes to you, freeing off all those shackles. And what does Ambedkar do when he has to address? He is directing you, he's commanding you, and is somebody who is also lending you a hand of support, but also he's demanding a support from you. It's a reciprocal process that is very much central to the metaphor of Ambedkar's praxis, the Dhamma. Dhamma is about Maitri. Maitri is fraternity. Fraternity doesn't work with the practicide that we see in other Brahminical Hindu codes of law. And here, with the left gesture, the Ambedkar is of course suited and booted. The signature pen carries here, and that pen is of course something that Ambedkar writes as signature. And today, Ambedkar's signature is a saleable idea that people use decorating on their cars. The Dalits and the backward caste in India have B.R. Ambedkar's signature that is written on the constitution, now written on their homes and more of the places. This is the place. And Ambedkar here obviously is at a point. Why is this gesture important? So when you're addressing somebody, you need to balance your left hand. Now Ambedkar doesn't have anything to support himself. So Ambedkar here certainly is open, but also he's ready to clench his fist if time comes. So Ambedkar is not just somebody who is willing to engage. He's not somebody who is pacifist, but Ambedkar is also something who can clench his fist and pound if need be. But that fist is also meant to act as a defense against the obnoxious caste violence imposed on his people. That's why Ambedkar is not just a man who can draw his pen like a sword, but also is a man who can wrist his fist into a big block and also serve as an idea of defense, and left hand, as you know, is also idea of left. Left as in left out people who have been outcast, people who have been thrown away. Now the plinth that carries here, you can almost see the life-size structure of Ambedkar. The hairs that are combed well, and of course a three-piece suit that is design specific. And when we wear today, you have the recognition where people are writing the names of this. This is kind of idea is an Ambedkar inspired idea. Had Ambedkar not given us the idea of wearing expensive suits and living a life of dignity, Ambedkar would have shown us the path of backwardness. This is a metaphorical message that Ambedkar delivers. Now when we come to the forward, especially the sartorial makeup of it, Ambedkar certainly had diabetes and he loved fried food. His favorite foods were two, mutton as well as fish. He came from the western part of Maharashtra, so obviously that diet didn't work. Also Ambedkar couldn't do exercise. One of the biggest messages for many of activists out there is to take care of the health. Let that health not envelop you in your own activism. Ambedkar couldn't, of course, pay attention to his health. That led him to being sick and marrying his second wife, Sharda Kabir, who also converted to Buddhism. Now, there are two important things that Rias has phenomenally managed to do, especially in the sartorial makeup. A, that he has gotten the proper crease of Ambedkar's pant to the waist. Because Ambedkar wore the pant up to the waist. Obviously he had a big belly, so he had to wear up to them. And the second important aspect of the whole makeup was this stylish haircut that goes very professionally with a standard suit and a tie that has been framed accordingly. And the size of the tie is not more, is not less, it's at the proper waist level. And if you ask any stylist who is dealing with suits, will tell you that if you have a proper hairstyle that matches your facial structure, the the eyewear, that then complements the structure of the front posture. And then if you zoom out, a perfect complementary human being dressed in a certain getup is presented. Now, Rias brings us to do two of these important plinths. East, west, north, south. You have to decide what side you are at. This plinth, that is almost of equal size, but that's the highest, second, third, and fourth. So this plinth asks us to look up to Ambedkar. That invited us to embrace, hug, and appreciate Ambedkar, but this plinth right now asks us to look up to him and gaze right into his eyes. It's a very rare occasion when you can literally face a structure that produces such kind of messages. Now here Ambedkar again is in the same posture, it's the same body. The statue size is remarkably impressive and huge size. It's made in brass, obviously. This gesture of holding, this could also convert into this. The idea of receiving and giving is also presented in the Dhammic values. When the Tathagata, the Samyak Sambuddha, offered blessings and merits to people, a usual posture that is presented is in this form. And there are various forms, especially in the Mahayana tradition, where artists have carved various parts of Buddha's hand gestures as well as meditating postures that gives us this message. Now this plinth, phenomenally, we have to look up to Ambedkar, but also look at the size of it. This artwork that Rias also himself describes, which was Dhamma Swaraj, trying to bring together the Ambedkarite values with the values that South Africa embraces, and the South African values of the Indian connection was Gandhi that asked for Swaraj. But the Swaraj without value of Dhamma is not Swaraj. Self, the distance between the two plinths here is 10, nearly 10 feet, 9.10, and it's also 9.8. It's an equal distance, it's almost a square if you manage it, and from the diagonal end it's 8 feet. I don't know what the artist is trying to convey. If you multiply 10 by 10 or 9 by 9, we get a weird number, or 100, or 8 times 4, 32. I'm not able to piece this together. 32, the closest I guess is the Pune pack. But Ambedkar here leaves this two plinth open. It's an invitation who will occupy these two places. It's an invitation to solidarity for people from the Africana world. This is the place for you. Ambedkar is here. Well, these two plinths remain vacant. This vacancy is an open invitation for people to build solidarities on the ideas of Ambedkar, along with Ambedkar, and maybe someone more contemporary can ornament this plinth that the artist Rias Kumu has kept open. Dilip Menon has written about this piece, exploring through the logics of post-colonial imagination. This open-ended structure, which also represents an unfulfilled cordon, and you need to create boundaries. But here, it also means that you're trying to create an infrastructure, an edifice of something. That tower is still to be built. We are awaiting that standing, towering personality, an object, a material, a metaphysics. We don't know what that is going to lie. But this here is a profound message of bringing Ambedkar to the cradle of humankind, wherein the process of Dhamma, the purity of compassion, has been spread out. And through the messenger of modern Bodhisattva, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that the Buddha and his modern forms of thinking, thought, and liberation, Nibbana, is guiding us through Ambedkar. I think it's a gesture, it's a message, but also there's a lot of mathematical unresolved calculations that has been kept here. Da Vinci-esque sort of calculus that needs to be interrogated, and maybe some mathematicians and statisticians will come us and help us come to a number. But this is artist that has left us with many more questions, but also profound simplicities that give this existence new meaning for people from across the world, more particularly to the people in India who hold Dr. Ambedkar so close to their heart that they find a solace in his life. Self-independence, self-autonomy, self-government is not possible without an ethical mandate. So it has to be preceded by Dhamma. And when the world was debating the politics of third world and the world politics, one important figure was missing, and that figure was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Rias Kumu has brought Dr. Ambedkar right into the site of cradle of humankind, where Ambedkar is giving a message to the humankind about our origins, and our origins have to strive for equality. We may not have started off as an equal society, we may not have had discovered the principles of self-respect and human rights, but we are at a moment in 21st century and onwards when we'll have to recognize the precious lives of people who are oppressed, the people across the world, the gays, the lesbians, the oppressed, the tribals, the people from across the world, the colonized, the people who are fighting against the internal oppression, people who are seeking democracy, people who are fighting for fraternity, people all across the world are embracing that values. And Ambedkar is proposing right in cradle of humankind, and the plinth open structure, Ambedkar looks, there are no boundaries, there are no cages. Had it been a metaphor, this would have been in a caged environment. Caste society wants Ambedkar to be confined and caged. Cradle of humankind, in an artist's imagination, invites Ambedkar to the world. No cages, no directions. You can turn in any direction. And that's why Ambedkar, as a man, also needs to see who is on his back. And when this lone solitude man, who was the most hated of the Indian press when he was fighting for the rights of the Dalits and the Indian country, there was nobody beside him except his own people. And so he had to always fall back. And on whose back he had to fall back? It was himself. So Ambedkar was somebody who had to constantly rely on himself. A life of profound misery, lack of fellowship. When you witness such orangutan person going through this shackles that he's trying to break, this is a profound narrative that has been established. And that's why Fourth World Project that Rias Kumu has envisioned through Dr. Ambedkar brings a very important message. This message has to be decorated through not only sartorial and stylistic output, but also the deep meanings and messages, as well as the embrace of humanity that has registered here in Cradle of Humankind. Jai Bhim.